Snow fell without mercy. A little girl lay frozen on a train station bench, barefoot, shaking a cardboard sign beside her that read "No one's child." Dozens of people walked past. No one stopped. Until Keanu Reeves did. And in that moment, he faced a choice that could save her life or destroy his own. Before we continue this incredible story, let us know where you're watching from. If you enjoy stories like this, subscribe to the channel because tomorrow we have another inspiring story you won't want to miss. The snow fell in thick, quiet sheets, muffling the sound of the city until the train station felt sealed off from the rest of the world. It was the kind of cold that did not rush at you all at once. It crept in slowly, slipping through seams in coats, finding exposed skin settling into bones. The kind of cold that made breathing feel heavier, like every inhale had weight. The commuter platform was nearly empty. A few overhead lights flickered, casting pale halos onto the snow-covered concrete. The tracks were dark and silent, stretching away into the distance like frozen scars. Most people who passed through this station did so quickly on nights like this. Heads down, hands buried in pockets, minds fixed on warmth, waiting somewhere else. At the far end of the platform, almost swallowed by shadow, a small figure lay curled on a wooden bench. She was a little girl no more than 7 years old. Her body was drawn inward, knees tucked close to her chest, arms wrapped around herself as if she were trying to disappear. She wore a thin, burgundy dress, the kind meant for a mild autumn day, not a night when snow clung to eyelashes and breath turned white. Her legs were bare. Her feet rested directly on the frozen wood of the bench toes, tinged a faint, frightening blue. Her skin had lost its healthy color. Around her lips and fingertips, the cold had begun to claim ground. Her body trembled in small, constant shivers, not dramatic enough to draw attention, not loud enough to alarm anyone. She did not cry. She did not call out. Her eyes were closed, but she was not asleep. Sleep would have been dangerous now. Beside her, propped awkwardly against the slats of the bench, was a torn piece of cardboard. The edges were soggy from melting snow, the surface warped and soft. Someone had written on it, with a thick black marker, the letters pressed hard and deliberate, as if the writer wanted the words to last. No one's child. 3 words. Heavy words. Words that felt colder than the air itself. People walked past. A man in a long coat slowed his pace for half a second, his gaze flicking toward the bench before darting away again. A woman dragging a suitcase glanced at the sign, frowned briefly, and adjusted her scarf tighter around her neck. Another commuter stepped wide around the bench, as if the girl were an obstacle, not a person. None of them stopped. The girl's body continued its quiet shaking. Her breathing was shallow, each breath a small effort. She listened to the rhythm of footsteps passing behind her. Boots, heels, the scrape of luggage wheels over ice. She had been listening to those sounds for a long time now, long enough to learn that footsteps did not mean help. They only meant someone else choosing not to see her. The bench became part of the scenery. Wood, snow, shadow, child, all blending together into something easier to ignore. From the opposite end of the platform, a man stepped off a delayed train. He moved without urgency, his pace unhurried despite the cold. He wore a dark coat, worn but well kept, and a knit cap pulled low over his hair. His hands were bare, his posture relaxed, alert in a quiet way. Keanu Reeves had traveled long enough to recognize when something felt wrong. As he walked, his eyes scanned the platform without effort, the way they always did. He was not looking for anything specific, he was simply paying attention. Then he noticed the stillness at the far end, the shape on the bench that did not shift like the others, the absence of movement where there should have been some. His steps slowed. Then he saw the cardboard. He read the words once, then again, and Keanu Reeves stopped walking. The cold pressed harder the longer Keanu stood still. Snow gathered on the shoulders of his coat, melting slowly into darkened fabric. He did not brush it away. His attention was fixed on the bench, on the small body that had not reacted to his presence, on the sign that felt deliberately placed rather than discarded. No one's child. The words sat wrong in his chest, Not dramatic, not shocking in the way violence was, wrong in a quieter, deeper way, like something had been broken and left out in the open. He did not approach immediately. He had spent a lifetime learning how easily moments could be misread, how quickly intention could be twisted when people only saw the surface. A grown man, a lone child, a nearly empty platform. He knew how this looked. He knew how easily help could be mistaken for harm. So he stopped several feet away. The girl's body trembled again. A small shiver that ran through her shoulders and down her legs. Her eyes remained closed. Her lips parted slightly, but no sound came out. Whatever strength she had left was being spent simply staying conscious. Keanu crouched, slowly lowering himself to the cold concrete so he was no longer towering above her. The chill seeped through his jeans, almost immediately sharp and biting, but he did not shift. He rested his hands openly on his knees, palms visible, movements deliberate and unthreatening. "Hey," he said softly. His voice did not echo. The snow swallowed the sound before it could travel far. "I'm right here." There was no response, not in her face, not in her breathing, only another faint tremor. He leaned just enough to see her more clearly. The blue tint around her lips was spreading. Her eyelashes were clumped with melting snow. Her fingers were curled inward stiff, as if her body was slowly forgetting how to relax. Keanu glanced down at the cardboard again. The marker ink had bled slightly where snow had soaked through. Whoever wrote it had pressed hard, carving the words into the surface. This had not been written in a hurry. This had been written with intention. He looked back at the girl. She was too still. That was what finally tipped the balance inside him. Not the sign, not the cold, the stillness. Children were rarely still unless something was very wrong. Even sleeping children shifted, sighed, stretched. This child held herself like someone who had learned movement did not change outcomes. Keanu drew a slow breath and spoke again, keeping his tone even. "My name's Keanu," he said. "I'm not here to hurt you." Her eyelids fluttered, just barely. For a moment, one eye cracked open, unfocused, glassy. It did not land on his face. It drifted somewhere near his chest, then closed again. Her breathing hitched. Keanu did not reach for her yet. He knew better than to rush touch when fear had already done enough damage. Instead, he reached for the zipper of his coat. The metal sounded too loud in the quiet night. He shrugged the coat off his shoulders, the cold biting instantly into his arms. He stepped closer to the bench and gently draped the coat over her body, tucking it around her the way someone might wrap a blanket, careful not to startle, careful not to overwhelm. Her shivering slowed slightly. Keanu's jaw tightened. This was no longer about how it looked. This was about time. He slid one arm beneath her knees and the other behind her back. Her body was alarmingly light, too light. When he lifted her, her head tipped against his chest, her breath warm and shallow against his skin. For the briefest second, her eyes opened again. They met his. There was fear there. And something else. Something close to hope, fragile and uncertain. Then her eyes closed, and her body went limp in his arms. Keanu did not hesitate again. He turned toward the station doors, footprints filling with snow behind him, carrying a child the world had already decided not to see. The station doors loomed ahead, glowing with artificial light that felt almost unreal after the darkness outside. Keanu adjusted his grip, shielding the girl from the wind as snow continued to fall behind him. Each step felt heavier, not from her weight, but from the understanding settling in his chest. Someone had left this child here on purpose. Someone had walked away believing no one would stop. Keanu pushed the door open with his shoulder and stepped into the warmth, knowing that whatever came next, the night had already changed. And so had he. The platform felt different once Keanu stopped moving. The cold did not just surround him now. It pressed in sharper, more insistent, as if punishing stillness. Snow collected silently along the edges of the bench, softening its shape, trying to erase what lay there. The girl remained curled in the same position, her breath shallow, her body giving off the quiet signals of someone running out of time. Keanu stayed where he was for a moment longer, forcing himself not to rush. He knew how quickly a wrong move could turn help into harm. especially in a place like this, especially at night. A grown man and a lone child, a nearly empty station, cameras mounted high on poles, windows glowing faintly in the distance. Every angle mattered. He lowered himself slowly, bending one knee, then the other until he was kneeling on the frozen concrete several feet away. The cold cut through, instantly sharp enough to sting, but he welcomed it. It kept him grounded. It reminded him to be deliberate. The girl did not react. Her body trembled again, a weak, uneven shiver that looked less like fear now and more like exhaustion. Her lips were slightly parted, the skin around them pale and tinged with blue. Too blue. Keanu looked at the cardboard again. No one's child. The words did not make him angry. Anger would have been easier. Anger could be aimed somewhere. These words brought something else. Clarity. Someone had made a choice. Someone had decided that this was an acceptable place for a child to be left. Not lost, not forgotten. Left. He felt the weight of that decision settle in his chest. Keanu reached up and slowly pulled his gloves off one finger at a time, making sure his movements stayed visible and calm. He placed the gloves on the ground beside him and held his hands out, palms open, resting on his knees. There was nothing in them. No sudden motion, no threat. "Hey," he said quietly, keeping his voice low and steady. The sound barely carried past the bench. "I don't want to scare you." Her eyelashes fluttered. Just a flicker. Her eyes did not fully open. They drifted beneath closed lids, unfocused, as if she were trying to decide whether staying still was safer than looking. "My name's Keanu," he continued. "I'm here to help." The words felt small against the night, but he said them anyway. He knew she might not believe him. He knew trust did not come easily to children who had learned silence was safer than hope. "I'm not going to touch you unless I have to," he said, choosing each word carefully. "You're not in trouble." Another shiver ran through her body, this one weaker than the last. Keanu's eyes moved over her again, taking in details he wished he did not have to notice. The thinness of the dress, the bare feet against frozen wood, the way her fingers were curling inward, stiffness beginning to replace tension. Signs he had seen before, though never this close, never like this. Time mattered now, and still he hesitated. He knew what helping could look like from the outside. He had lived his entire adult life under observation, cameras, headlines, assumptions. He knew how easily a moment could be cut, reframed, misunderstood. A single photograph, a single accusation, a story told without context. Not helping, though, had a clearer ending. He looked at her face again. The stillness, the fading color, the fragile rise and fall of her chest. Keanu drew a slow breath. The choice settled inside him, quiet and absolute. He reached for the zipper of his coat. The zipper slid down his coat with a soft metallic sound that felt too loud in the silence. Keanu ignored it. He shrugged the coat off his shoulders slowly, letting the cold bite into his arms and chest. The air felt sharp now, almost painful, but pain was not what mattered. The girl's breathing was what mattered. The faint tremor still moving through her small body was what mattered. He stepped closer to the bench, careful not to block her path of air, careful not to loom. He draped the coat over her, gently starting at her shoulders, tucking it around her sides the way someone might wrap a child in a blanket at the end of a long day. The fabric was warm from his body, heavy enough to shield her from the wind that slipped across the platform. Her shivering changed almost immediately. It did not stop, but it slowed, as if her body recognized warmth and tried to respond. Keanu watched closely. He did not smile. He did not speak. He simply stayed present, waiting to see how she reacted. Her lips parted again. A small breath escaped, uneven but deeper than before. "Good," he whispered more to himself than to her. Snow continued to fall, collecting on his hair, melting along the collar of his sweater. He did not move away. He stayed close enough to block the worst of the wind, with his body far enough to avoid crowding her. He thought again about the risk, about how this scene might look through a security camera lens. A man without a coat, a child wrapped in it. He knew there would be questions. He also knew questions could be answered. Hypothermia could not. Keanu shifted his weight and knelt again, closer this time, but still careful. He reached out slowly and hovered his hand near her shoulder without touching, letting her sense his presence before contact. "I'm going to help you get somewhere warm," he said quietly. "Okay." Her eyelids fluttered again. This time they opened a fraction more. One eye found his chest, then drifted upward toward his face. Her gaze did not settle. It slid unfocused, tired, but it did not recoil. She did not pull away. That was enough. Keanu slid one arm beneath her knees and the other behind her back, lifting her in a single controlled motion. Her body was lighter than he expected, alarmingly light. Her head tipped against his chest, her hair damp and cold against his skin. She made a small sound, not a cry, just a breath catching. "I've got you," he said instinctively, the words leaving his mouth before he thought about them. Her fingers twitched against the fabric of his sweater, curling slightly as if searching for something solid. Then her grip loosened. Her body relaxed just enough to worry him. Keanu adjusted his hold, securing her more firmly against him, wrapping the coat tighter around her back. He could feel how cold she was now. Not just cool, deep cold, the kind that sank inward. He turned toward the station doors. They glowed in the distance, rectangles of yellow light against the night, close enough to see, far enough to feel unreachable. Each step he took left an imprint in the snow that filled in almost immediately behind him. As he walked, a single thought stayed clear in his mind. Someone had believed no one would stop. They were wrong. The weight of her in his arms felt wrong, not because it was heavy, but because it was not. She should have weighed more. She should have felt solid, warm, alive in the way children were meant to feel. Instead, she felt fragile, as if the cold had hollowed her out from the inside. Keanu adjusted his grip again, careful to keep her face clear, careful to keep her wrapped tight. Her breath brushed faintly against his collarbone. Each rise of her chest felt like a question. Each pause between breaths felt too long. As he moved, his awareness widened. The station cameras mounted above, the glass doors ahead, the empty platform behind him. He knew there would be records of this moment, timestamps, footage, angles that could be misread by people who had not stood in the snow long enough to feel how close this child was to disappearing. He accepted that without resentment. There were moments in life when calculation no longer mattered, when the risk of being misunderstood was smaller than the risk of doing nothing. This was one of them. The girl stirred slightly in his arms. Her head shifted against his chest. Her lips moved, barely parting, as if she were trying to form a word, but did not know which one to choose. No sound came out. Her body did not have the strength for language anymore. Keanu leaned his head closer, without breaking stride. "You're not alone," he said quietly. "You're not invisible." The words were not dramatic. They were not promises of rescue or miracles. They were simple truths spoken into a moment that desperately needed them. Ahead, the station doors waited bright and solid. Warmth, people, phones, help. Behind him, the bench sat empty, now snow already beginning to erase the shape where she had been. Keanu did not look back. He stepped forward, carrying her out of the cold, already knowing that whatever questions came next, he would answer them. Because tonight, the only answer that mattered was this. He stopped, before the bench, before the snow, before the cardboard sign reduced her to 3 words. Lily Brennan had a life that was small, quiet, and carefully managed. Lily was 7 years old. She lived with her mother, Sarah Brennan, in a narrow apartment above a laundromat on the edge of town. The building always smelled faintly of detergent and warm fabric. Even in winter, the windows fogged easily from the heat rising below, and the low hum of washing machines never fully stopped. It was a sound Lily had grown up with. To her, it meant home. The apartment had 1 bedroom. Lily slept on a twin mattress, pushed against the wall, covered with a quilt Sarah had found at a thrift store years earlier. The colors had faded, but Sarah washed it every week, careful to keep it clean. Lily's drawings were taped unevenly to the walls. Stick figures with oversized smiles, houses with bright doors and wide windows, suns drawn too large for the sky always shining. Sarah worked double shifts at a diner 3 miles away. She left before sunrise and often came home long after dark. On most days, Lily saw her mother for only a short stretch in the evening. They ate together at the small kitchen table. They talked about school, about spelling tests and playground arguments, and what Lily had drawn that day. Sarah listened closely even when her eyes were tired. Every night before Lily went to bed, Sarah kissed her forehead and said the same thing. "You're the strongest girl I know." Lily believed her. She had to. There was no father in Lily's life. There never had been. Sarah never spoke about him. Lily learned early not to ask questions that made the room go quiet. She did not feel the absence the way other children did. This was the only life she knew. It was just her and her mother moving carefully through each day. Sarah had rules, not suggestions. Rules. Walk straight home from school. Do not talk to strangers. Do not take shortcuts. If something feels wrong, go directly to Mrs. Grady's apartment next door and knock 3 times. Loud. Mrs. Grady was 73 years old and lived alone. She had gray hair that curled softly around her face and hands that shook when she poured tea. She watched Lily in the afternoons when Sarah worked late, never asking for money. She said Lily reminded her of someone she used to know. She cut the crusts off Lily's grilled cheese sandwiches because Lily once mentioned she didn't like them. These rules kept their small world intact, but there was a part of Sarah's life Lily did not know about. A chapter Sarah believed she had closed for good. 2 years earlier, Sarah had dated a man named Dean Hollister. At first, he was easy to like. He smiled often. He listened. He fixed things around the apartment without being asked. A loose cabinet hinge, a leaking pipe under the sink. He brought groceries when money was tight and told Sarah she worked too hard, that she deserved more. Then things shifted. Dean never raised his voice. He never hit Sarah. He never did anything that would have left bruises or police reports. Instead, he watched. He noticed when she was late. He asked who she talked to at work, who she laughed with, who she smiled at. He disliked when Lily was in the room. Said the child was always listening, always in the way. He said Sarah would never be free as long as she had responsibilities. Lily felt it before Sarah admitted it to herself, the way Dean's eyes lingered on her, the way his smile disappeared when she entered a room. Lily began to stay quiet when he was around. She learned to take up less space. Sarah ended it the night she realized Lily had started hiding behind her legs when Dean came near. She told him to leave. She changed the locks. She stopped answering his calls. For a while, Dean stood across the street at night watching the apartment window. Then one day he was gone. Sarah told herself it was over. She was wrong. Dean Hollister did not disappear. He simply learned how to be quieter. 3 weeks before the night Lily was left on the bench, Dean returned to the edges of Miller's Crossing without announcing himself. He did not knock on Sarah's door. He did not call. He did not send messages. He watched. He watched Sarah walk to work in the early morning, her shoulders hunched against the cold, her apron folded under her arm. He watched her return late at night, exhaustion written into the way she climbed the stairs. He watched the single window above the laundromat counting the hours the light stayed on, counting the hours it stayed dark. And he watched Lily. Every afternoon at exactly 3:15, Lily walked home from school the same way, down Miller Street, past the hardware store, across the tracks. She carried a backpack that was slightly too big for her, the straps frayed at the edges. She looked both ways before crossing the street, just like her mother taught her. She never noticed the gray sedan parked near the grocery store, half hidden by shadows. She never noticed the man sitting inside it, hands resting on the steering wheel, eyes fixed and unblinking. Dean watched for days without moving. He memorized her routine, her pace, the way she paused to retie her shoes near the corner, the way she hummed to herself when she thought no one was listening. In Dean's mind, the story was already written. He told himself he was not a bad man. He told himself he had tried. He had fixed things. He had stayed when he could have left. He had given Sarah attention and stability. And in return, she chose the child, a child that was not his, a child that looked at him with fear instead of gratitude. Dean reframed memory until it suited him. In his version, Sarah had taken something from him. In his version, Lily was the reason he lost everything. He convinced himself that Sarah needed to understand what loss felt like. The idea did not come all at once. It formed slowly, the way dangerous ideas often did. It grew during long hours in a cheap motel room that smelled of smoke and mold. It grew while he sat alone in parking lots, watching Sarah laugh at customers through diner windows. It grew while he drank enough whiskey to blur guilt without erasing intent. One night, Dean stood behind a gas station and found a piece of cardboard tossed near a dumpster. He stared at it longer than necessary. He imagined it sitting beside something small, something helpless. He wrote the words carefully, pressed hard with the marker, made sure the message was clear. No one's child. He folded the cardboard and placed it in the trunk of his car. Dean did not think of Lily as a person anymore. He thought of her as leverage, a way to break the silence Sarah had built between them, a way to force her to listen. Meanwhile, Sarah sensed something without being able to name it, a tension that sat in her chest, a feeling of being watched. She double-checked locks. She walked Lily to Mrs. Grady's door more often. She told herself she was being paranoid. Life had taught her not to trust fear unless it had proof. Lily felt it too. She became quieter in the weeks before the night everything broke. She stopped talking about school as much. She drew fewer suns in her pictures. She began to listen more than she spoke, her eyes tracking doors and windows. Children noticed danger before adults allowed themselves to. On the day Lily did not come home, Sarah assumed nothing at first. She finished her shift, wiped down the counter, folded her apron. She thought Lily was upstairs with Mrs. Grady, watching old movies, eating sandwiches with the crusts cut off. By the time Sarah realized Lily was missing, Dean's plan was already in motion. And Lily, the child who had learned to be silent to survive, was about to be taught just how cruel silence could be. By the time snow began falling that night, Lily had already learned the most dangerous lesson of all. Stay quiet. Stay small. Do not trust footsteps. Do not expect rescue. Silence had kept her safe before. On that bench, silence almost killed her, until one man finally stopped walking there. Dean Hollister returned to Miller's Crossing the way he did everything else. Quietly, deliberately, as if slipping back into a place he believed still belonged to him. He did not announce himself. He did not knock on doors or ask questions. He parked his gray sedan on side streets and in half-empty lots, places where no one paid attention. He learned the rhythm of the town again, the slow mornings, the tired afternoons, the way the streets emptied earlier in winter. He watched Sarah first. From the parking lot across from the diner, he sat with the engine off and his hands resting on the steering wheel, eyes fixed on the window. Inside, Sarah moved between tables with a coffee pot in her hand. She smiled at customers. She laughed at things he could not hear. Her hair was pulled back the way it always had been when she worked. She looked tired. She looked thinner. She looked alive in a way that made something twist inside his chest. Dean told himself he was just checking on her. That was the word he used, checking. As if concern explained the hours he spent sitting in the cold. As if love justified watching her without her knowing. He did not see a woman who had escaped something dangerous. He saw a woman who had abandoned him, a woman who had chosen a different life without asking his permission. He watched her leave the diner at night coat, pulled tight, shoulders slumped with exhaustion. He watched her cross the street and disappear down the road toward the laundromat. He never followed close enough to be noticed. He stayed just far enough back to remain invisible. Then he started watching Lily. At first he told himself it was accidental, that his eyes just happened to drift toward the sidewalk at the right time, but soon he adjusted his schedule around hers. Every afternoon at 3:15, Lily appeared at the school gates, small, predictable, backpack bouncing against her back as she walked. She crossed the street carefully. She paused at the same corner every day. She tied her shoes near the same fence post when the laces came loose. Dean memorized it all. He noticed how Lily never looked up, how her gaze stayed low, scanning the ground ahead of her instead of faces. He noticed how she flinched when cars passed too close, how she hurried when footsteps came from behind. In his mind, these were not warning signs. They were confirmation. She had always been afraid of him, from the beginning. She had hidden behind Sarah's legs. She had watched him like an animal watches a threat. In Dean's version of events, Lily had poisoned Sarah against him. She had made him feel unwelcome in a place he believed he had earned. He told himself he had tried. He had brought groceries, fixed things, stayed longer than most men would have, and still Sarah chose the child. That was the thought that hardened everything. In Dean's mind, the problem had never been Sarah. It had been Lily, the constant presence, the barrier, the reminder that he would always come second. He did not see a 7-year-old girl. He saw leverage. The idea did not arrive fully formed. It crept in slowly during long nights in his motel room, staring at the ceiling while the heater rattled, during mornings when he woke with anger still burning behind his eyes, during afternoons spent watching Sarah laugh with strangers who did not know what he had sacrificed. He began to believe he was owed something, not forgiveness, not love, understanding. And if Sarah would not listen willingly, then he would give her a reason she could not ignore. Dean did not think of what he was doing as cruelty. Cruelty was loud. Cruelty was reckless. What he was planning felt careful, controlled, almost reasonable, at least to him. He told himself Sarah had never really listened to him, that every conversation had ended the same way, with her turning away, with Lily hovering too close, with the sense that he was always being judged in his own home. He told himself he had been patient. That patience had been punished. The nights were the worst. Alone in the motel room, the television flickering without sound, Dean replayed old memories until they changed shape. In some versions, Sarah smiled at him longer. In others, she hesitated before asking him to leave. In all of them, Lily was there, watching, silent, present. He drank to slow his thoughts, not enough to lose control, just enough to dull the sharpest edges. He liked to believe he was still in control. Control mattered to him. Control meant he was not the man everyone else thought he was. One evening, parked behind the grocery store, Dean watched Lily stop to retie her shoe. She bent down, fingers clumsy with cold, completely unaware of the world around her. A car honked somewhere down the street. She startled, looked up, then hurried on. Dean felt something close to satisfaction. She was vulnerable. Not because she was weak, but because she trusted routine. Because she believed the world would behave the same way tomorrow as it had yesterday. That was when the thought finally settled into place. Not to hurt her. That was what he told himself. Never to hurt her. Just to make Sarah feel what it was like to lose control. To wake up and realize something precious was gone and that the rules no longer protected her. Dean believed fear could teach lessons love could not. Days later, behind a gas station on the edge of town, he found the cardboard. It was torn, weathered, useless to anyone else. He held it in his hands longer than necessary, testing its weight, imagining where it would be placed. The words came easily. No one's child. He wrote them slowly, carefully pressing the marker hard enough to leave grooves in the cardboard. He wanted the message to last. He wanted it to be unmistakable. In his mind, the words were not an insult. They were a verdict. He folded the cardboard and placed it in the trunk beside a blanket he had bought from a thrift store and a roll of duct tape. He told himself he would not need. He closed the trunk gently as if sudden noise might alert someone. For the next few days, Dean watched more closely than ever. He adjusted his timing. He waited for the night when Sarah would be working late, when the weather would do part of the work for him, when the cold would make people less likely to stop. He convinced himself he was being merciful, that leaving Lily somewhere visible meant she would be found, that someone would intervene, that Sarah would be scared, yes, but not broken. Dean never considered the possibility that no one would stop. In his mind, the world still worked the way it was supposed to. Someone else would take responsibility. Someone else would notice. Someone else would do the right thing. That belief allowed him to sleep the night before he acted. By the time snow began to fall, Dean Hollister had already decided what kind of man he was. He just did not know yet how wrong he was. To Dean, the cardboard sign was never meant to describe Lily. It was meant to wound Sarah. No one's child was not an observation. It was a sentence, a punishment written in ink instead of blood. In Dean's mind, those words were supposed to echo in Sarah's head the way his absence had echoed in his own. He imagined her finding them, reading them, breaking. He believed that pain would force understanding. That fear would reopen a door he thought she had slammed shut without cause. What Dean never allowed himself to imagine was the bench itself, the hours, the cold settling deeper with each passing minute, the way snow erased footprints and sound alike, the way people learned to look away. He assumed the world would intervene, that someone else would carry the burden of conscience for him. That was the lie he told himself to stay calm, because if no one stopped, then this was not leverage. It was abandonment, and abandonment once chosen cannot be taken back. The girl weighed almost nothing in Keanu's arms. That was the first thing that struck him as he carried her across the platform. Not light in the way children sometimes were, but light in a way that felt wrong. As if the cold had taken more than warmth, as if it had begun taking substance. Her head rested against his chest, her cheek pressed to his sweater. Her hair was damp from snow strands clinging to her forehead. Each breath she took was shallow, uneven, like her body was negotiating with itself over whether to continue. Keanu adjusted his grip, slightly tightening the coat around her back, shielding her face from the wind that still cut across the open platform. He did not rush, but he did not slow down either. Every step was measured, controlled. He kept his focus forward on the station doors ahead, glowing faintly under fluorescent light. Warmth, phones, people, help. Behind him, the platform remained quiet. Snow continued to fall, filling in his footprints almost as soon as they formed erasing evidence that anyone had stopped at all. The station building was warmer than the platform, but not by much. The heater struggled against the cold, humming loudly near the walls. The air smelled faintly of oil and metal. A young station worker stood behind the counter, flipping through paperwork, shoulders hunched. He looked up as the door opened. At first his expression was neutral, then his eyes dropped to the small form in Keanu's arms, then to Keanu's face. Recognition flickered there. Uncertainty followed close behind. For a moment, the worker did not move. Keanu stopped several feet from the counter, careful not to crowd the space. Lily stirred slightly in his arms, a faint sound escaping her throat that barely qualified as a breath. "She's been outside too long," Keanu said, his voice calm, firm, without urgency, but leaving no room for debate. "She needs an ambulance. Now." The worker hesitated. His gaze moved from Keanu to the girl, then back again. His hand hovered near the phone, fingers tense. There was a question forming on his face. "Who are you? Where did you find her? What happened?" Keanu did not answer questions that had not been asked. "She's freezing," he said simply. "Please." That was enough. The worker picked up the phone. His hands shook slightly as he dialed. He spoke in short, clipped sentences, describing the station, the child, the situation. He glanced up once more, as if still unsure this was real, then turned away to continue the call. Keanu moved to a wooden bench near the heater and carefully lowered Lily onto it, keeping her wrapped in his coat. He knelt beside her, immediately placing one hand near her shoulder, without pressing the other, hovering close enough to block drafts of cold air. He counted her breaths. 1, 2, 3, too slow. He leaned closer, lowering his voice again, speaking as much for her as for himself. "Stay with me," he said quietly. "Just stay with me." Her eyelids fluttered. Her breathing hitched, then continued. Keanu did not take his eyes off her chest. He counted again. He adjusted the coat. He positioned his body to shield her from anyone passing by. The phone call ended. The worker looked up, fear and relief crossing his face at the same time. "They're on the way," he said. Keanu nodded once. He stayed exactly where he was, kneeling beside a child who had been left to disappear, doing the only thing left to do now, waiting and counting every breath. Minutes stretched in a way that made time feel unreliable. The heater hummed. The overhead lights flickered once, then steadied. Somewhere deeper in the building, a door opened and closed. Ordinary sounds. In this moment, they felt distant, almost intrusive. Keanu stayed close to Lily, keeping his movements minimal. He had learned long ago that panic traveled faster than calm. He let his breathing slow and steady, hoping her body might follow the rhythm. He adjusted the coat again, tucking it under her shoulders, making sure it stayed sealed against her skin. Her breathing remained shallow, but it was there. That was what mattered. He counted quietly in his head, not seconds, breaths. The pauses between them were long enough to make his chest tighten. Each inhale felt like a fragile agreement with the world. Each exhale felt like it might be the last. The station worker finished the call and hovered a few steps away, unsure what to do with his hands. He glanced at Lily, then at Keanu, then at the door, as if willing the ambulance to arrive faster. "Is she—" he started, then stopped. Keanu did not look up. "She's cold," he said. "Very cold. Just stay ready." The worker nodded and backed away, clearing space instinctively, understanding that crowding her now would do more harm than good. Lily stirred again. Her fingers twitched against the fabric of the coat. One hand slipped free, pale and stiff. Keanu noticed immediately. He gently guided it back inside the warmth, without squeezing, without startling her. "You're doing great," he murmured. "You're doing exactly what you need to do." He did not know if she heard him. He said the words anyway. Silence had already taken enough from her. A siren wailed faintly in the distance. So far away it might have been imagination. Keanu did not react outwardly, but inside, something loosened. Help was coming. Not soon enough to relax, but soon enough to keep going. The worker moved to the door, peering out through the glass, scanning the street beyond. Snow continued to fall, swirling in the glow of streetlights. Lily's eyelids fluttered again. This time they opened a little wider. Her eyes were dull, unfocused, but they moved. They tracked something near Keanu's shoulder. Her lips parted. A sound came out. Not a word. Not even a whisper. Just air. Keanu leaned closer, careful not to overwhelm her field of vision. "I'm here," he said. "You're inside now. You're warm." Her gaze shifted again, briefly brushing his face before drifting away. It was not recognition. It was awareness. A fragile thread, but a real one. Her breathing changed, still shallow but more regular. Keanu stayed exactly where he was. He did not stand. He did not look toward the door again. He did not allow himself to imagine outcomes. He stayed with what was in front of him, one breath at a time. The siren grew louder, closer now. Red and blue light flickered against the windows, casting brief shadows across the floor. The worker exhaled sharply. "They're here." Keanu nodded again once. He kept his hand near Lily's shoulder, his body angled protectively between her and the room, as if that alone might hold her in place until help arrived. She had been alone long enough. He would not let go now. The doors burst open with a rush of cold air and movement. Paramedics stepped inside quickly, voices calm, but urgent boots leaving wet prints on the floor. Keanu did not move until they were right beside him. He waited for their nod, for the unspoken signal that it was time to transfer her. "She's been exposed for a long time," he said quietly. Her breathing was shallow. "It's steadier now." They listened. They always did when someone spoke like that. One of the paramedics knelt opposite him, checking Lily's pulse, her temperature, her responsiveness. Another prepared a thermal blanket. Keanu loosened his coat only when they were ready, careful not to let heat escape too quickly. For a moment, Lily's fingers curled into the fabric clinging. Keanu stayed still until her grip relaxed. They lifted her gently onto the stretcher, wrapping her in layers of warmth. Tube's monitors practiced hands. The process was efficient, almost quiet. As they wheeled her toward the door, Lily's eyes opened again. This time, they focused. Just for a second, she looked back at Keanu. He leaned closer. "You're safe," he said. "They're going to take care of you now." Her gaze held for a heartbeat. Then she blinked, and the moment passed. The doors closed behind them. The siren started again. Keanu stood alone in the station, his coat gone, his hands empty, the warmth still lingering where a life had rested against him. He exhaled slowly. He had stopped. And because of that, She was still alive. The ambulance ride was fast, but careful. Sirens cut through the night, red and blue lights reflecting off snow-covered streets, as Lily lay strapped to the stretcher, wrapped in layers of thermal blankets. Her small body looked even smaller beneath the equipment. Wires traced gentle lines across her skin. An oxygen mask rested over her nose and mouth, fogging faintly with each breath. Keanu sat on the bench along the side wall, hands folded loosely in front of him. He did not touch her now. He watched. He listened. He counted her breaths again, even as the paramedic called out numbers and vitals that confirmed what he already knew. She had been very close to disappearing. At the hospital, the doors opened before the ambulance fully stopped. A team was waiting. They moved with practiced urgency, voices, calm bodies, precise. Lily was transferred from stretcher to gurney in a smooth motion, never exposed to the cold air for more than a second. Warm blankets replaced thermal foil. A heated room swallowed her whole. Keanu followed only as far as he was allowed. Then he stopped. Doctors worked quickly. Hypothermia, core temperature dangerously low, blood pressure unstable. One doctor spoke quietly to another. Their words clipped efficient. They moved her under warming lights, attached monitors, adjusted fluids. Someone checked her pupils. Someone else checked her hands and feet for frost damage. Minutes passed, then more. Finally, a doctor stepped out and approached Keanu. She removed her gloves slowly, eyes steady. She was minutes away from organ failure, she said plainly. Another half hour out there and we would be having a very different conversation. Keanu nodded once. The words landed heavy, but not surprising. She's stable now, the doctor continued. Still critical, but stable. That was enough. A social worker arrived not long after. She was soft-spoken, careful, trained to move gently through moments like this. When Lily was awake enough, they tried to ask questions. Where had she been? Who was with her? Did she know her name? Lily whispered when she could, her voice barely more than breath. Cold, she said once. Another time, bench. Later, just one word. Car. The answers were fragments, pieces of something larger her mind was not ready to touch yet. Police arrived shortly after. 2 officers, no raised voices, no flashing lights. They spoke with doctors first, then with the social worker. Then one of them approached Keanu. They asked him where he had found Lily. What time? What condition she was in? Keanu answered calmly, clearly sticking to facts. He described the bench, the sign, the cold. He did not speculate. He did not offer theories. When the officer finished writing, he asked for a statement. Keanu signed it without comment. Outside the hospital doors, reporters had begun to gather. Someone had recognized him. Phones were out. Whispers moved quickly. Keanu did not go that way. Once Lily was confirmed stable, once there was nothing more he could do without being in the way, he stepped back. He left quietly through a side exit unnoticed. On the chair beside Lily's bed, folded neatly, was his coat. He did not take it with him. The hospital hallway was bright in a way that felt almost unreal after the night outside. White floors, white walls, the steady beeping of monitors behind closed doors. Nurses moved past with practiced calm, their voices low, their steps quick but unhurried. Everything here was designed to keep people alive, to hold the line between danger and recovery. Lily lay in a small room at the end of the corridor, wrapped in heated blankets, her body slowly relearning warmth. Machines tracked her breathing, her heart rate, the fragile progress happening minute by minute. A nurse adjusted a dial and checked her chart, then spoke softly to her, even though Lily's eyes were half closed. "You're doing good," the nurse said. "Just rest." Lily's fingers twitched beneath the blankets. Her lips moved, forming sounds that barely existed. When the social worker leaned close, Lily's eyes opened briefly, unfocused but present. "Cold," Lily whispered again. The social worker nodded, not correcting, not pressing. "I know," she said gently. "You're not cold now." Later, when Lily's breathing steadied, the social worker tried again. Simple questions, easy words. Lily's answers came in pieces. Bench, a pause, snow. Another pause longer this time. Car. The room went quiet after that. No one pushed her further. They had learned to respect silence here, to understand that trauma spoke when it was ready. Outside the room, Keanu stood with his back against the wall, arms folded loosely. Gaze fixed on nothing in particular. He did not pace. He did not check his phone. He waited. Waiting was something he understood well. A police officer approached again, this time with a different tone. Not procedural. Human. "You did the right thing," the officer said quietly. Keanu nodded, not trusting himself to respond with anything useful. The officer glanced down the hallway toward Lily's room. Most people don't stop. Keanu did not answer that either. The sound of voices drifted in from the main entrance. Too many voices, too many overlapping questions. The officer followed his gaze and understood immediately. "They're outside," he said. "Press." Keanu gave a small, acknowledging nod. He had expected that. He always did. When the doctor returned and confirmed Lily would be transferred to intensive care for continued monitoring, Keanu knew his part was finished. Staying longer would not help her. It would only complicate things. He stepped into Lily's room one last time, stopping just inside the doorway. He did not approach the bed. He did not touch her. He simply stood there, looking at the small shape beneath layers of blankets, at the steady rise and fall of her chest. "You're safe," he said quietly, unsure if she could hear him. "You're not alone." Then he turned and left. He did not go through the main entrance. A nurse guided him through a side corridor, past storage rooms, and closed doors until he reached a quiet exit near the back of the building. The cold met him again as he stepped outside, biting sharper without his coat. He barely noticed. Back in Lily's room, the nurse folded the dark coat neatly and placed it on the chair beside the bed. It stayed there, warm, waiting. Time moved differently after that, not in hours or minutes, but in small confirmations, numbers stabilizing on a monitor, a nurse nodding instead of frowning, a doctor no longer speaking in urgent tones. Lily's body slowly and stubbornly chose to stay. In the early hours of morning, a senior physician reviewed her charts again and spoke quietly with the team. The danger had not passed, but it had retreated. Her organs were responding. Her temperature was rising, controlled and steady. The line between survival and loss had shifted just enough. A child psychiatrist stopped by, briefly advising caution. No sudden questions, no pressure. Let Lily lead when she was ready. Trauma, they agreed, had its own language, and it did not respond well to force. When Lily woke again, it was only for a moment. Her eyes opened and closed, heavy with exhaustion. The nurse asked her name. "Lily," she whispered. It was the clearest word she had spoken since arriving. The nurse smiled softly and wrote it down. Later, the social worker returned, sitting nearby without a clipboard this time. Just presence. When Lily stirred, the woman spoke gently. "Do you remember the man who helped you?" she asked. Lily's brow furrowed slightly. Her lips moved, then stopped. She swallowed. "Warm," she said, after a long pause. That was all. Outside, the morning brought light and questions. Police continued their work. The cardboard sign had been collected. The station cameras reviewed. A timeline assembled. Lily's fragments began to align into something actionable. Keanu's statement became part of that record. Precise, calm, unembellished. He did not insert himself into the story more than necessary. He did not claim credit. He did not ask for updates. He left a contact number with the hospital administrator in case it was needed, then declined further involvement. When asked if he wished to make a statement to the press, he shook his head once. "No," he said simply. By mid-morning, the reporters had names, photos, speculation. But the hospital remained quiet. Lily's room stayed closed. Her recovery took precedence over every headline forming outside. In that room, the coat still rested on the chair beside the bed. Dark fabric, familiar weight. When Lily shifted in her sleep, her fingers brushed against it, once unconsciously. She did not wake, but her breathing deepened just slightly. The nurse noticed and left the coat where it was. Keanu did not return for it. He walked away without fanfare, without explanation, carrying the cold with him and leaving warmth behind. And in a hospital room filled with machines and quiet determination, A child who had been left as no one's responsibility was finally being watched over, carefully, constantly, and for the first time in a long while, completely. Sarah Brennan's shift ends the way it always does. With sore feet, the smell of coffee clinging to her clothes, and a quiet countdown in her head. Walk home, unlock the door, kiss Lily's hair, ask about school, make dinner from whatever is left in the fridge. Small rituals, survival disguised as routine. The diner is loud until it isn't. Chairs flip onto tables. The cook wipes down the grill. Someone turns off the radio. Sarah ties off her apron and hangs it on the hook she always uses. She checks the time. Later than she hoped. Snow has started falling again. Thick this time. She walks fast. The stairs beside the laundromat creak under her weight. She reaches the landing, digs, her keys out of her pocket already, calling Lily's name out of habit. Lil, no answer. The apartment is dark. Too dark. Sarah flips the light switch. The bulb flickers once, then steadies. The room looks normal at first glance. Shoes by the door, backpack against the wall. But the sound is wrong. There is no sound, no hum from the old heater. No movement from the mattress in the corner. No quiet humming Lily does when she colors. Lily, Sarah says again, louder now. She steps inside, scanning the room. The quilt is folded, the pillow untouched. Lily's jacket is missing from the hook by the door. Her heart begins to pound. Sarah moves faster. Bathroom, empty. Bedroom corner, empty. She opens the closet. Nothing. She drops to her knees and looks under the bed, even though she knows better. Lily, she whispers now, voice tight. She runs next door and knocks on Mrs. Grady's door. Once, twice, 3 times the way Lily was taught. No answer. Sarah knocks harder. Mrs. Grady, it's Sarah. The door opens slowly. Mrs. Grady's face is confused, worried. She shakes her head before Sarah even finishes the question. I haven't seen her, the old woman says. I thought she was with you. Something breaks loose in Sarah's chest. She runs back down the stairs into the snow, calling Lily's name. Her voice echoes against brick and concrete. People pass. A man pulls his collar tighter and keeps walking. A woman glances over and looks away. Sarah runs to the corner, to the grocery store, to the park, to the crosswalk Lily always uses. Nothing. Her phone buzzes. She stops so suddenly she almost falls. The number is unfamiliar. No name, just a message. She's safe for now. Come alone. Sarah stares at the screen. Her hands shake so badly she almost drops the phone. Another message follows. If you call anyone, she won't be. The snow keeps falling. Sarah knows instantly who sent it. The past does not announce itself. It waits, and then it speaks. She looks around searching for help, for reason, for permission to do anything but obey. But there is no choice. Sarah turns toward the dark and starts walking. The walk feels longer than it should. Every street stretches. Every corner looks unfamiliar. Sarah's breath comes in sharp bursts that burn her throat. Snow collects in her hair, melts against her skin, seeps into her collar. She does not stop. She cannot. Her phone stays clutched in her hand like a fragile promise. She reads the message again and again. She's safe for now. The words mean nothing without Lily's voice behind them. Safety is not a sentence. It is not a threat written by someone else. Safety is Lily sitting on the mattress with her crayons. Safety is Mrs. Grady's door being open. Safety is not this. Sarah reaches the rail yard just beyond the old warehouses, a place people avoid after dark. Rusted tracks disappear under snow. Abandoned freight cars sit like broken teeth against the night. The air smells of metal and cold. A figure stands near one of the cars. Dean Hollister does not step forward. He waits, hands in his pockets, calm, familiar in the worst way. He looks thinner than she remembers, sharper. His eyes settle on her like she has arrived exactly when expected. Where is she? Sarah says. It comes out hoarse, barely a voice. Dean tilts his head. You're shaking, he says, as if noticing something small. You should have worn a warmer coat. Where is my daughter? She's warm, he says. I made sure of that. Sarah takes a step toward him. He raises one hand, not threatening, controlling. "Easy," he says. "You came alone. That was smart." Her hands clench into fists so tight her nails bite skin. "Tell me where she is." Dean sighs like a man disappointed by a conversation that isn't going his way. "You never listen anymore," he says. "You used to. I told you to stay away from us." "And I did," he replies, "for 2 years. You didn't notice." The snow crunches under Sarah's boots as she shifts her weight. Every instinct tells her to run, to scream, to fight, but every instinct is outweighed by one unbearable truth. Lily is somewhere without her. "You chose her." Dean continues, his voice steady. "Every time. I tried to be patient. I fixed things. I showed up, and you made me invisible." "She's a child," Sarah says. "She's not leverage. She's not yours." Dean smiles faintly. "No," he says. "She's yours." "That's the point." The words settle heavy between them. "You need to understand what that feels like," he adds. "To lose the thing you build your whole life around." Sarah's vision blurs. "You left her out there?" she says. "You could have killed her." Dean's smile fades, replaced by irritation. "I didn't plan on anyone stopping," he says. "People usually don't. The truth lands like ice water." Sarah takes another step forward before she can stop herself. "If she's hurt," she says, "I will destroy you." Dean laughs softly. "You already did," he replies. "You just didn't know it yet." Somewhere far away, sirens wail, or maybe Sarah imagines them. Her world has narrowed to one man, one absence, one child who should be sleeping safely at home. Dean looks past her down the tracks, then back at her face. "This isn't over," he says. "Not yet." And then he turns and walks away into the snow, leaving Sarah standing alone with nothing but fear and the sound of her own heartbeat pounding in her ears. Sarah does not follow him. Her legs refuse to move, not from weakness but from something colder. A realization settling deep in her chest. Dean wanted her here, wanted her frozen in this moment, alone, powerless, forced to listen and watch him leave. The snow keeps falling, soft, uncaring. Her phone vibrates again, another message from the same number. "Be grateful." Someone intervened. Her breath catches. She reads it twice, then a third time. Someone intervened. The words do not make sense yet, but they crack something open inside her. A thin line of hope she is afraid to touch. She types with shaking fingers. "Where is she?" No reply. Sarah stands there until the cold finally bites through her coat and into her bones, until fear gives way to instinct. She turns and runs, not knowing where she is going, only knowing she cannot stand still anymore. She runs back through the streets, through snow and slush, past dark windows and closed doors. Her mind races ahead of her body, hospital, police, anywhere that might have answers. When she reaches the laundromat stairs again, her lungs burn, Mrs. Grady's door is still closed. Sarah does not knock this time. She keeps moving. At the corner, she nearly collides with a patrol car pulling to a stop. Red and blue lights paint the snow. An officer steps out, concern already on his face. "Ma'am," he says. "Are you Sarah Brennan?" Her knees nearly give out. "Yes," she says. "My daughter, Lily. She's missing." The officer nods, once calm but serious. "She's been found," he says. "She's alive." The world tilts. Sarah grips the edge of the car to stay upright, where she whispers. "At the hospital," he says. "She was brought in earlier tonight. Severe hypothermia, but she's stable now." Sarah's mouth opens, but no sound comes out. Relief crashes into her so violently it hurts. Tears spill down her face, hot against the cold. "She kept asking for you," the officer adds gently. "We've been trying to locate you." Sarah sobs then. No dignity, no restraint. Just the sound of a mother who almost lost everything. As they help her into the back of the patrol car, Sarah looks once more toward the dark end of the street where Dean disappeared. For the first time, the fear shifts. Someone had stopped. Someone had seen Lily. And whoever that stranger was, they had already changed the ending of this night. Sarah presses her forehead to the cold glass and lets herself believe just for a moment that her daughter is still in this world, waiting for her. The cardboard does not look dangerous at first glance. It is thin, torn at one edge, softened by moisture where snow melted and refroze, the kind of scrap most people would throw away without a second thought. But now it sits sealed inside a clear evidence bag under bright fluorescent lights, no longer invisible. 3 words stare back through the plastic. No one's child. A transit officer places the bag gently on the metal table. Another officer pulls on gloves. The room smells faintly of disinfectant and old paper. The station security footage plays silently on a monitor nearby. Time stamps roll forward. Commuters pass, one by one, dozens of them. Heads down, phones out, hands in pockets. Then the moment changes. The camera catches Keanu stopping. That part is already circulating quietly between departments. Not leaked, not released, just observed. The pause, the turn of his head, the way he kneels, the way he blocks the wind with his body. No hero framing, no sound, just a fact. Back at the table, a technician lifts the cardboard carefully and angles it beneath a light. Powder is brushed across the surface, slowly, methodically. The black marker ink absorbs light differently than the raw cardboard. Edges of letters become clearer. Fingerprints bloom where someone pressed too hard. Clear, distinct, enough. The technician exhales and nods once. Photos are taken. The prints are logged. A computer hums as data moves through systems that do not care about motives, only matches. It takes less than 4 minutes. A name appears on the screen. Dean Hollister. The room stills. An officer scrolls. Prior reports load in sequence. Harassment complaints. Unwanted messages. A restraining order request that was never finalized because Sarah Brennan could not afford to miss another shift to attend court. Notes from 2 years ago. A pattern that had never quite crossed the threshold into urgency. Until now. The handwriting sample appears next. A scanned image from an old report. A note left on Sarah's apartment door back when Dean first began circling again. The comparison software overlays the letters. The match is undeniable. Same pressure, same slant, same habit of pressing harder at the end of words like punctuation needed force to feel final. No one's child. The phrase is no longer anonymous. It belongs to someone. Phones come out, radios crackle. The room fills with motion. A search request is authorized. Patrol units are alerted. A gray sedan description is added based on an earlier tip from a diner parking lot. A timeline begins to assemble backward and forward at the same time. Dean Hollister did not vanish. He repositioned. Across town, Sarah Brennan sits in the back of a patrol car wrapped in a blanket that does not stop her shaking. Her breath keeps hitching like her body has forgotten how to slow down. The officer beside her speaks softly, repeating the same words again and again because they matter. She's alive. Sarah hears them but does not trust them yet. Alive is fragile. Alive can still be taken away. Her phone rests dark in her lap. No new messages, no answers. Only silence where threats used to be. That silence terrifies her more than words. The car turns a corner. The hospital comes into view in the distance, lights glowing against the snow like something unreal. Sarah presses her forehead to the window. Tears blur everything. Behind her, unseen, the investigation tightens its grip. The sign, the prints, the name. What was meant as a punishment has become a trail, and it is being followed. The patrol car does not speed. There is no need. Sirens would only turn this into something public, something fragile. The officer driving keeps his hand steady on the wheel, eyes forward, letting the quiet do its work. Sarah's body finally gives in halfway there. The shaking turns into sobbing. Not loud, not dramatic, just the sound of breath breaking apart. Her hands clutch the blanket like it might disappear if she loosens her grip. The officer in the passenger seat turns slightly, keeping his voice low. "You're safe now," he says. "She's safe." Sarah shakes her head. "I left her," she whispers. The words spill out before she can stop them. "I wasn't there. The officer does not correct her. He does not tell her it is not her fault. He knows better. Those words rarely land in moments like this. Instead, he says something simpler. Someone was. Sarah's breath catches again. She looks up. Who? The officer hesitates, choosing his words carefully. A man at the station. He noticed her. He stayed with her until help arrived. Did he know her? Sarah asks. No. That answer breaks her open. A stranger stopped. Someone who did not owe Lily anything chose to see her anyway. The car pulls into the hospital drive. Snow crunches beneath the tires. Nurses are already waiting near the entrance, alerted ahead of time. The doors slide open and warm air rushes out, carrying the smell of antiseptic and coffee. Sarah tries to stand too quickly. Her knees buckle, hands catch her before she falls. The blanket slips from her shoulders. She does not care. Where is she? She says again. The question has become instinct. They guide her through corridors that all look the same. White walls, buzzing lights. Doors that promise answers and fear at the same time. Her heart pounds so hard she can hear it in her ears. They stop in front of one door. The nurse opens it slowly. Lily lies in the bed, small, beneath layers of blankets. A tube runs to her nose. Machines hum softly. Her skin is pale, but no longer blue. Her chest rises and falls in a steady rhythm that Sarah locks onto like a lifeline. Sarah makes a sound that is not language. She crosses the room in 3 steps and collapses to her knees beside the bed. Her hands find Lily's hands. They are warm. Warm. I'm here, Sarah whispers. I'm here. Lily's eyes flutter. They open just enough to see her mother's face. Her lips part. Mom, she breathes. Sarah presses her forehead against Lily's hand and cries silently now, shaking with relief and grief tangled together. Nurses step back. The room gives them space. Outside that room, officers move with new purpose. Phones ring, doors open. A name is repeated again and again. Dean Hollister. The cardboard sign did what it was meant to do. It connected everything, and now it was leading them straight to him. Sarah does not remember standing up from the floor. One moment she is kneeling beside the bed, forehead pressed to Lily's small hand, and the next she is sitting in the chair, arms wrapped around her daughter, as if her body has decided never to let go again. Lily clings to her, not gently, not politely. Her fingers curl into the fabric of Sarah's coat with desperate strength, as if the world might take her mother away again if she loosens her grip. Sarah feels the small tremors in Lily's shoulders, the uneven rhythm of her breathing as it slowly steadies. I'm here, Sarah whispers again and again. I'm not going anywhere. Lily buries her face into her mother's chest. Her voice is muffled, thin, but real. I was cold. I know, Sarah says. Her throat tightens. I know, baby. They stay like that for a long time. No one interrupts. A nurse checks the monitor quietly and steps back. The room hums with low mechanical sounds, but nothing else intrudes. This moment belongs only to them. Eventually, Lily shifts just enough to look up. Her eyes are tired, glassy, but focused now. She studies her mother's face, as if making sure it is real. You came, Lily says. Sarah nods, tears spilling again. Always. Lily's hand slides down Sarah's arm, then stops. Her gaze drifts past her mother's shoulder toward the chair beside the bed. Sarah follows her eyes. A dark coat is folded neatly there, larger than anything Sarah owns, heavy, worn at the edges. It looks out of place in the sterile hospital room, like it belongs to a different world entirely. What's that? Sarah asks softly. Lily's fingers twitch. He put it on me. Sarah turns back to her. Who did? Lily frowns, searching. The man, she says, at the bench. Sarah feels her chest tighten again. What man? The one who picked me up? Lily replies. He was warm. Sarah's breath catches. She looks toward the door where a nurse stands quietly. My daughter, Sarah says, voice unsteady. She said someone brought her in. The nurse nods. Yes, a man found her at the station. He stayed with her until the ambulance arrived. Sarah's hand presses flat against her chest. Did you see him? I did, the nurse says. He was calm, very focused on her. He didn't leave her side. Did he say anything? Sarah asks. The nurse thinks for a moment. He asked how long it would take for help to arrive. He counted her breaths. He kept her talking as much as he could without pushing. Sarah closes her eyes. Lily's hand tightens again. He told me I wasn't in trouble, Lily says quietly. He said I was safe, even if I didn't feel like it yet. Sarah presses her lips to Lily's hair. Her voice shakes when she speaks again. What's his name? She asks. The nurse hesitates, then answers. Keanu Reeves. The name lands softly, but it lands. Sarah opens her eyes. She looks at the coat again, then at her daughter, alive in her arms. Her heart struggles to hold everything at once. Gratitude, shock, awe, a quiet, overwhelming need to say thank you to someone who is no longer here. She whispers the name once like a promise she intends to keep. Keanu. Sarah sits back slightly, just enough to look at Lily's face again. She needs to see her breathing, needs to see the color in her cheeks, needs to anchor this moment so it cannot be taken from her later by fear or memory. You're safe now, Sarah says slower this time, letting each word settle. No one's taking you anywhere. Lily nods, but her fingers do not loosen. They stay tangled in her mother's coat, as if holding on is the only way to keep the world steady. Sarah does not ask her to relax. She remembers how fear works. It leaves on its own schedule. The nurse steps closer, lowering her voice. She's been asking for you since she woke up. Didn't say much else. Sarah swallows. Did she say anything about what happened? The nurse shakes her head. Just pieces. Cold. Bench. A car. That's normal. Her mind is protecting her. Sarah nods. She does not push. She strokes Lily's hair instead, the way she did when Lily was younger, and nightmares came too close to morning. Lily shifts again and glances toward the coat. He left it, she says. Yes, Sarah replies. He did. He didn't take it back, Lily adds, as if this matters in a way she cannot yet explain. Sarah looks at the coat more carefully now. The fabric is thick, practical, the kind someone wears often. Not for fashion, for use. She imagines a man standing in the snow without it choosing cold, without hesitation. Did he scare you? Sarah asks gently. Lily shakes her head. No, he waited first. Waited, Sarah repeats. He sat down, Lily says. Not close. He talked slow. Sarah closes her eyes for a moment, picturing it. A stranger choosing patience instead of urgency. Care instead of fear. That was good of him, Sarah says. Lily nods. He said my name nice. Sarah's throat tightens. He knew your name. Lily shrugs. I think I told him, or maybe he guessed. Sarah smiles faintly through tears. Either way, I'm glad he knew it. There is a knock at the door. A doctor steps in, quiet and respectful. He explains the plan for the next hours. Monitoring. Warm fluids. Observation. He says Lily is strong, that she was found just in time. Just in time. The phrase echoes. When the doctor leaves, Sarah exhales deeply for the first time since the night began. Her body sinks into the chair. Exhaustion washes over her, but she refuses to let go. Lily yawns her grip finally, loosening a fraction. Mom. Yes. Can you stay? Sarah presses her forehead to Lily's. I'm not leaving. Not tonight. Not ever. Lily's eyes close again, calmer now. Her breathing evens out. Sarah holds her until sleep takes over, watching every rise and fall of her chest. Only then does Sarah reach out and touch the coat. She smooths the fabric once, reverently. Whoever he was, whatever the world thought of him, he had carried her child out of the cold, and Sarah knew with absolute certainty that this moment would never leave her. Keanu returns the next morning the same way he left, quietly. There are no cameras waiting outside the hospital, no assistants walking ahead of him, no phone pressed to his ear. He enters through a side door most people never notice, wearing the same simple clothes as the night before, only cleaner. Dark jacket, knit cap in his hand. His steps are unhurried, but purposeful. A nurse recognizes him immediately, not with surprise, but with something closer to respect. She's awake, the nurse says softly. Her mother asked if you'd come. Keanu nods once, if it's okay. The nurse leads him down a hallway that smells of disinfectant and morning coffee. The hospital feels different in daylight. Less urgent, less sharp, but the weight of the night still lingers in every corner. They stop outside Lily's room. Keanu does not knock right away. He takes a breath, not a dramatic one, just enough to steady himself. He has walked onto sets with hundreds of people watching. He has stood under lights and applause. None of that feels like this. The nurse opens the door and steps aside. Sarah looks up first. She is sitting in the chair beside the bed, hair pulled back hastily, eyes tired but clear. When she sees him, she stands so quickly the chair scrapes against the floor. For a moment, neither of them speaks. Then Sarah's hand flies to her mouth. Tears well, instantly uncontained. You came, she says. Keanu nods. I said I would. She steps toward him, then stops herself, unsure of the distance, unsure of what is appropriate. Her gratitude is too large for etiquette. Thank you, she says. The words come out broken. I don't even know how to say it right. Keanu lifts one hand, slightly palm open gentle. You don't need to, he says. I just wanted to check on her. His eyes move past Sarah to the bed. Lily is awake, propped against pillows, a stuffed animal tucked under one arm. Her face is pale, but alive. Her eyes find him instantly. They widen. She does not smile. She does not speak right away. She just stares, as if making sure the man from the snow is real in this brighter place. Keanu lowers himself slightly instinctively, bringing himself closer to her level without approaching the bed. Hi, he says quietly. Lily studies his face. The knit cap, the familiar calm in his eyes. Her grip tightens on the stuffed animal. You're the one, she says, slowly. Keanu nods. I think so, the one who said I was warm now. The room stills. Sarah turns sharply toward her daughter. The nurse near the door pauses. The words carry more weight than they seem to. Keanu kneels fully now, one knee to the floor, careful not to rush the space between them. I did say that, he replies. Lily tilts her head. I wasn't warm before. I know, Keanu says. His voice stays even, steady. But you were strong the whole time. Lily thinks about this. Then she looks at her mother as if checking something important. He didn't lie, she says. Sarah presses a hand to her chest. Keanu glances up at Sarah briefly. There is no pride in his expression, no need to be seen as anything more than what he was, a person who stopped. He looks back at Lily and speaks softly, clearly. You always were warm, he tells her. You just needed someone to notice. Lily nods once, satisfied, as if something inside her has settled. Sarah finally finds her voice again. Please, she says. Sit, just for a moment. Keanu hesitates, then rises and takes the chair opposite the bed. He sits with his hands resting loosely on his knees, posture open, unguarded. The meeting is not long, but it is enough. For a few moments no one speaks. The quiet is not awkward. It feels earned. Lily watches Keanu the way children watch someone they trust, but are still learning how to trust again. Sarah watches both of them, afraid to interrupt something fragile. Keanu breaks the silence first gently. How are you feeling? He asks Lily. She shrugs a small motion. Sleepy, she says. Then after thinking, and hungry. Keanu smiles, not wide, not dramatic. Just enough. That's a good sign. Lily studies him again. You didn't take your coat back. He nods. You needed it more than I did. She considers that carefully. Did you get cold? A little, he admits. Why didn't you take it? She asks. Keanu does not answer right away. He chooses honesty, but simple honesty, the kind a child can hold. Because sometimes he says being cold is okay if it keeps someone else safe. Lily nods as if this makes perfect sense. Sarah wipes her eyes quietly. She keeps asking about you, she says. I didn't know what to tell her. I didn't even know your name at first. That's okay, Keanu replies. Names aren't the important part. Sarah shakes her head. It is to me, her voice trembles. You carried my daughter out of the snow. You stayed when no one else did. I don't think I'll ever understand how to thank you. Keanu looks uncomfortable now, but not defensive. Just sincere. You don't owe me anything he says. Really. But you changed everything Sarah says. Keanu exhales slowly. I didn't change anything, he replies. I just noticed. Lily shifts in the bed and reaches out slightly, not touching him, but close enough to be seen. Are you leaving again? She asks. Yes, Keanu says gently, but not because I want to. She frowns. Will I see you again? Keanu glances at Sarah, not for permission, but for reassurance. Sarah nods. If you want to, Keanu says. And if your mom says it's okay. Lily nods once. Okay. A nurse appears at the door, giving a soft signal. Visiting time is almost over. Keanu stands immediately. He looks at Lily one last time. You did really well, he says. You were brave. She shakes her head. You were. Keanu smiles again, just a little. We both were. He turns to Sarah. She steps forward without thinking and hugs him quickly, fiercely, then pulls back embarrassed. Thank you, she says again. Keanu nods once. Take care of her. I will, Sarah says. I promise. Keanu leaves the room the same way he entered it, quietly. No cameras, no audience, but something follows him out. Relief, and something like hope. The roadside motel sits just far enough off the highway to feel forgotten. A row of identical doors, a flickering neon sign that hums more than it glows. Snow piled against the curb like something left behind. Dean Hollister chose it because it asked no questions. Cash at the desk, no last names spoken out loud, no interest in why a man checked in, alone so late. Inside room 12, the television plays to no one. Dean sits on the edge of the bed, fully dressed, shoes still on. His phone rests on the nightstand face down. It has not buzzed again, not since the message he sent Sarah. Not since the silence that followed. He tells himself this is temporary, that people panic, that police overreact, that once he explains himself, everything will settle back into place. He has built this story carefully in his head. He repeats it until it feels solid. He did not hurt the girl. He did not plan for her to die. He only wanted Sarah to understand. Outside headlights sweep briefly across the thin curtains. Dean does not look up. A knock sounds at the door. Firm. Controlled. Not the sound of someone asking. Dean exhales through his nose and stands slowly smoothing his jacket, like presentation matters. He walks to the door and opens it halfway. 2 uniformed officers stand in the snow. A third waits behind them, hand resting near his belt. Their breath fogs the air. Dean Hollister, one of them says, "Not a question." "Yes," Dean replies. His voice is calm. "That's me. We're here to talk to you about a child," the officer continues. Dean nods, almost relieved. "Good," he says, "because there's been a misunderstanding." The officer's eyes do not change. "Turn around," he says. Dean hesitates. "I think, if you just let me explain." "Turn around now." Something in the tone finally cuts through Dean's certainty. He complies, hands lifting slowly. Fingers spread wide as they taught him once in a class he never thought he'd need. Cold metal closes around his wrists. The click is loud in the quiet parking lot. Dean flinches. "This is unnecessary," he says. "I cooperated." "You can explain at the station," the officer replies. As they guide him outside, Dean looks around as if expecting someone to witness this, to intervene, to say they have the wrong man. The motel manager watches from behind the office window, expression blank. The patrol car door opens. Dean pauses. "She's alive," he says quickly. "You know that, right? I made sure she was safe." One of the officers stops and looks at him. "You left a 7-year-old barefoot in the snow," he says evenly. With a sign, Dean's jaw tightens. "I didn't think anyone would find her that fast." The door closes. Inside the car, the heater hums. Dean stares straight ahead, jaw set, still clinging to the belief that this will resolve itself once the facts are laid out the right way. He does not yet understand that the facts have already spoken, and they are not on his side. At the station, the fluorescent lights strip the night of whatever softness it had left. Dean sits at a metal table with his cuffed hands resting in front of him. The room smells like disinfectant and old coffee. A camera hums quietly in the corner, indifferent and patient. An officer places a folder on the table and opens it without ceremony. Photos slide out first. The cardboard sign, the words written in thick black marker. No one's child. Dean's eyes flicker, then steady. That doesn't mean what you think it means, he says. It wasn't literal. The officer does not respond. He turns the page. Text messages follow, timestamps, phone numbers. Sarah's name highlighted again and again. The message sent that night. She's safe for now. Come alone. Another page. Surveillance stills from the station. Dean's gray sedan idling nearby earlier that evening, his face partially visible through the windshield glare. Dean leans back slightly. You're building this wrong, he says. You're missing context. The officer finally looks at him. Help me understand it then. Dean nods, grateful for the opening. I never wanted to hurt her, he says. I wanted Sarah to feel something, to stop pretending I didn't matter. Another officer enters quietly and places a plastic evidence bag on the table. Inside the cardboard sign, fingerprint markings highlighted. Your prints are all over it, the officer says. Multiple points of contact, pressure consistent with writing. Dean's mouth tightens. I wrote it, he admits, but not how you think. Then explain, the officer replies. Dean exhales. It was symbolic. Sarah treated me like I didn't exist, like I was nothing. That sign was for her, not the kid. The room stays silent. She's 7, the officer says after a moment. There is no symbolism that makes that okay. Dean's jaw flexes. You're acting like I left her there to die. You did? The officer replies calmly, whether you meant to or not. Dean shakes his head, frustration creeping in. Someone found her. Yes, the officer says. Before hypothermia shut down her organs completely. Minutes mattered. Dean looks away for the first time. The door opens again. A detective steps in holding another file. He sets it down gently as if weight matters. Prior reports, the detective says. Harassment, stalking, statements from Sarah Brennan. This wasn't isolated. Dean's voice rises. Those were exaggerations. The detective flips the file open. Patterns don't exaggerate. The air thickens. The story Dean built begins to collapse under its own weight. Each explanation sounds smaller when spoken aloud. Each justification echoes wrong. You had choices, the officer says. You chose control. Dean stares at the tabletop. The metal reflects nothing back. We're charging you with child endangerment, the detective continues. Kidnapping, coercion, stalking. Dean laughs once, short and hollow. That's extreme. The officer stands. The system disagrees. As they lead him away, Dean turns his head slightly. She'll understand one day, he says quietly. Sarah will. No one answers. The door closes behind him with a final solid sound. This time, the system does not hesitate. The courtroom is full before the judge enters. Every bench is occupied. People stand along the walls, quiet, restrained, carrying the weight of something they cannot unsee. Reporters sit in the back row, notebooks closed for once, waiting. The air is tense but controlled. No shouting, no spectacle, just attention. Dean Hollister sits at the defense table in a borrowed suit that does not fit him well. His hands are folded. His posture is rigid. He looks smaller here, diminished by fluorescent lights and polished wood. The confidence he once carried has thinned into something brittle. Across the room, Sarah Brennan sits in the front row. Her back is straight. Her hands rest in her lap, fingers intertwined. She does not look at Dean. Her eyes stay forward, fixed on the judge's bench. Lily is not here. She is at school. She is drawing. She is being protected. The bailiff announces the judge. Everyone rises. Everyone sits. The prosecution begins without drama. Evidence first. The cardboard sign is brought out in a sealed plastic sleeve. The prosecutor holds it up slowly so the jury can see. 3 words in black marker, uneven but deliberate. No one's child. The room reacts, but quietly. A woman on the jury presses her lips together. A man exhales sharply through his nose. No one looks away. This, the prosecutor says evenly, was found beside a 7-year-old child left barefoot on a train platform in sub-zero temperatures. She pauses, lets the silence do its work. Fingerprint analysis confirms the defendant handled this sign multiple times. Handwriting analysis confirms he wrote it. The defense objects. The judge overrules. Photos follow. The bench at the station. Snow gathered in corners. The timestamps. Surveillance footage paused at the moment Keanu stopped walking. The prosecution does not name him. They do not need to. He was minutes from organ failure, the prosecutor continues. Had no one intervened, this child would not be alive today. Dean's attorney shifts in his seat. He scribbles notes he will not use. Sarah is called to the stand. She walks slowly, deliberately. Her hands tremble only once as she raises them to swear the oath. She sits. She breathes. She tells the truth. She describes her life above the laundromat. The double shifts. The rules she taught Lily because fear was cheaper than babysitters. She speaks of Dean without embellishment. Not as a monster, as something quieter, more dangerous. He watched, she says. He waited. He made me feel like I owed him my life. Her voice does not break when she talks about the night Lily disappeared. It tightens, but it holds. I came home and the apartment was silent, Sarah says. I knew immediately. The prosecutor asks about the text messages. Sarah confirms them. Her voice changes when she repeats the words aloud. She does not look at Dean. He told me to come alone, she says, and I did, because I believed my child would die if I didn't. The defense tries to suggest exaggeration, emotional interpretation, panic. Sarah looks directly at the attorney. My daughter almost froze to death, she says calmly. That is not interpretation. The judge does not interrupt. Lily does not testify. A child psychologist explains why. Trauma, age, the risk of re-traumatization. The judge agrees. The jury nods. No one questions it. Dean does not take the stand. His attorney argues intent, misunderstanding, emotional distress. He frames Dean as a man who lost control, not one who planned. The prosecutor stands again for closing. Intent is proven by preparation, she says, by surveillance, by the sign, by the messages. This was not a mistake. This was leverage. She gestures to the cardboard one last time. That sign was meant to erase a child, to turn her into a message. The law does not allow that. The jury leaves. The room waits. Justice in this place does not shout. It moves quietly, deliberately through procedure and patience. And it is coming. The jury returns just before noon. 12 people file back into their seats, faces set, movements measured. No one looks at Dean. No one looks at Sarah. They look straight ahead, as if carrying something fragile and heavy at the same time. The foreperson stands. On the first count, guilty. The word lands without drama, but it lands hard. Dean's shoulders stiffen. His jaw tightens. Sarah closes her eyes for a brief second, not in relief yet, but in preparation. The verdict continues. Guilty on the second count. Guilty on the third. Guilty on all charges. The courtroom remains silent. No gasps, no cheers. This is not that kind of ending. Dean exhales sharply, the sound almost a scoff. He shakes his head once, as if still convinced the world has misunderstood him. His attorney leans close, murmuring words that do not reach him. The judge thanks the jury and dismisses them. Then he turns back to the defendant. Sentencing follows immediately. The judge speaks plainly about the severity of the crime, about premeditation, about the lasting harm inflicted on a child and her mother, about how power was abused under the illusion of grievance. You chose fear as a tool, the judge says. You chose a child as a message. Dean looks up then, eyes flashing. I didn't touch her, he says suddenly. The judge does not raise his voice. You left her to die, he replies. The law recognizes no difference. The sentence is read. Long-term imprisonment. No early release. Mandatory restrictions upon eventual parole consideration. The words are formal, exact, unyielding. Dean sinks back into his chair. The fight drains from his posture. For the first time, he looks small, not pitiful, just contained. The bailiff steps forward. As Dean is led away, he turns his head toward Sarah. His mouth opens, perhaps to speak, perhaps to justify himself one last time. Sarah does not look at him. Her gaze is fixed on the judge's bench, steady and unmoving. Her hands are still folded in her lap, but they are no longer trembling. When the courtroom empties, Sarah remains seated for a moment longer. She exhales slowly, deliberately, as if teaching her body a new rhythm. Justice did not come with violence. It came with paperwork, testimony, and time. And this time it held. The story does not stay contained to the courtroom. It moves outward quietly at first, then with growing momentum. A local report becomes a regional headline. A regional headline becomes something shared across the country. The focus is consistent. A child found in the cold, a stranger who stopped, a life that did not end because someone paid attention. Keanu's name appears, but not the way people expect. There are no interviews, no press conferences, no footage of him walking out of buildings or answering shouted questions. Requests pile up anyway. Networks, morning shows, editorial writers asking for a quote. He declines all of it. Instead, a short statement is released through a representative. It is plain, unpolished, unremarkable on its surface. This was not about me. It was about a child who needed help and adults who needed to notice. We all have a responsibility to look out for one another, especially when something feels wrong. Please pay attention. That is all. Some criticize it for being too brief. Others praise it for being exactly enough. The words circulate anyway, copied and pasted beneath headlines, and shared thousands of times without comment. People add their own interpretations, their own confessions. I walked past someone once. I didn't stop. Next time I will. At the hospital, Sarah begins to receive calls she never expected. Social workers, counselors, advocacy groups, people who have read the story and want to help in ways that are not performative. Housing assistance, trauma counseling, legal follow-up. Financial relief she does not have to beg for. For the first time in years, Sarah does not feel like she is assembling survival out of scraps. She attends meetings reluctantly at first, listens more than she speaks, learns words for things she thought were just personal failures. Coercive control, psychological intimidation, stalking patterns that escalate quietly. The more she listens, the more she understands that what happened to her was not unique. And that realization changes something. When she is asked months later if she would consider helping other women navigate the system, she hesitates. Fear still lives close to the surface. But Lily is sleeping better now. The nightmares come less often. Therapy has given her language for feelings that once stayed trapped in her chest. Sarah says yes, not loudly, not with confidence, just yes. She starts small, sitting beside women in waiting rooms, explaining paperwork, holding hands during statements. She does not present herself as healed. She presents herself as honest. I didn't know, she tells them, until I did. Lily begins therapy twice a week. At first, she does not talk much. She draws, repeats shapes, colors scenes that do not include people. Her therapist does not rush her. She lets silence be safe again. Slowly, Lily adds details. A bench, snow, a coat too big for her body, a pair of hands held open, palms visible. The therapist notices the pattern and gently asks questions. Lily answers when she is ready. Keanu does not disappear. He does not step forward either. Once every few months he visits quietly. No announcements, no photos. He brings books, stories about animals, stories about bravery that does not look loud. He never stays long. He always asks permission. From Sarah, from Lily. Sometimes Lily sits beside him and reads out loud. Sometimes she does not. Sometimes they just sit in the same room, comfortable in shared quiet. That is enough. The ripple continues, and it does not need him at the center. The months that follow are not dramatic. They are steady, and for Sarah, that steadiness feels like a miracle. She moves Lily out of the apartment above the laundromat. Not far, just far enough. A place with light in the windows and a lock that does not stick. Lily gets her own small room, a desk by the window, a shelf for books that Keanu keeps adding to. Slowly, one at a time, never overwhelming, never symbolic. Lily starts school again. At first, she stays close to the classroom door. She watches exits. She flinches at raised voices. Her teacher knows. The counselor knows. No one forces bravery on her. They let it grow back at its own pace. Therapy becomes part of her routine, like brushing teeth or tying shoes. Some days she talks, some days she does not. The therapist tells Sarah that both are progress. One afternoon, Lily comes home and announces she wants a coat like the one that kept her warm. Not the same coat, just one like it. Sarah buys it. Dark, heavy, too big in the sleeves. Lily wears it anyway. In quiet moments, Sarah notices how the story has shifted. People no longer ask only about what happened to Lily. They ask what helped, who helped, what made the difference. Sarah answers carefully. Someone noticed, she says. That's it. She begins speaking at small community meetings, libraries, church basements, places where people sit close together and listen differently. She does not dramatize. She explains warning signs. She talks about silence, about how danger often looks ordinary until it isn't. After one talk, a woman approaches her in tears. I almost didn't come tonight, the woman says. I didn't think my situation was bad enough. Sarah takes her hands. Neither did I, she replies. Keanu stays in the background of all of it. When reporters try to tie his name to campaigns or slogans, he declines again. He sends books instead. Funds quietly routed through foundations with no press releases attached. He checks in through Sarah, never directly through Lily, unless invited. How is she sleeping? He asks. Better, Sarah replies. That is enough. One evening, Lily finishes a book he brought her and writes her name on the inside cover. She adds a second line beneath it. This book helped me feel warm. She hands it to Sarah to read. Sarah does not cry this time. She smiles. The ripple does not end with headlines or verdicts or statements. It settles into routines, into safer nights, into people who pause when something feels wrong. And somewhere in a city that no longer feels quite as cold, a little girl learns that being seen can change everything. 1 year later, winter returns. Not the same winter. Not the kind that swallows sound and steals breath. This one arrives gently, almost politely, dusting the sidewalks and rooftops with white instead of burying them. Lily watches it from the window of her new room, knees tucked under her, a box of crayons open at her feet. She is drawing again. At first, her pictures had been careful, simple shapes, houses with straight lines, trees without branches, people without faces. Her therapist never rushed her. Let the drawings say what words could not yet hold. Now the pictures are fuller. One page shows a bench, wooden slats, snow gathering underneath. It is not dark. It is not frightening. It simply exists. On the next page, the same bench appears again, but this time a figure is kneeling beside it. The figure is drawn smaller than the bench, deliberately so. The therapist notices and makes a quiet note. Lily adds color last. A thick coat, open hands. When Sarah peeks into the room, Lily looks up. I'm almost done, she says, with what Sarah asks. My remembering picture. Sarah nods. She understands. Lily finishes and sets the crayon down. She does not rush to show it. She sits with it for a moment, then finally holds it up. I used to draw the bench first, Lily says. Now I draw the man too. Sarah's chest tightens, not with fear this time, but with something steadier. Pride. Healing. Time doing what it is supposed to do. You don't have to keep it, Sarah says gently. You can draw other things too. I know, Lily replies. I just want to. Their new home feels different in ways Sarah never thought to imagine. The neighborhood is quieter. Streetlights work. Neighbors know each other's names. There is a small park within sight of the building, and Sarah can see Lily from the kitchen window when she plays. Safety is not dramatic. It is consistency. Sarah's life has changed too. She no longer introduces herself only as a waitress. She is invited into schools now, community centers, parent meetings. She stands in front of rooms filled with adults and talks about warning signs most people prefer not to see. She does not scare them. She explains how control often arrives before violence, how isolation grows slowly, how fear convinces you that you are overreacting. She tells them what she wishes she had known earlier without shame. At the end of each talk, someone always approaches her quietly. "Thank you for saying it out loud," they say. Sarah answers honestly, "I'm still learning too." The cardboard sign does not disappear. It is no longer kept in an evidence locker. After the trial with consent and careful handling, it becomes part of local safety training. Officers show it during seminars. Social workers reference it in case studies. Teachers talk about it during awareness programs, not to shock, to remind. 3 words. 1 bench. A moment when attention made the difference. The sign is never displayed casually. It is contextualized, framed with care. The message is not about fear. It is about responsibility. Lily knows about it, but she does not see it often. Sarah is careful. Some things are meant to stay symbolic, not personal. On a cold afternoon near the anniversary of the night, everything changed, Aura and Lily walk past the train station together. They do not stop. They do not need to. Lily squeezes her mother's hand once as they pass. "I'm warm," she says. Sarah smiles. So is the world just a little more than it was before. The anniversary passes without ceremony. No news cameras return to the station. No speeches are made. Life moves forward the way it usually does, quietly, without asking permission. And for Sarah, that feels like the greatest proof that things are different now. Lily walks to school with a backpack that is slightly too big for her shoulders. She still checks behind her sometimes, still notices exits. But fear no longer leads her. It informs her, then steps aside. Her therapist calls it integration. Sarah calls it her daughter growing back into herself. At school, Lily's teacher pins one of her drawings to the classroom board during a unit about community helpers. It is the picture of the bench and the kneeling man. The teacher does not explain the story behind it. She simply says, "This is about noticing." The children nod, absorbing the idea in their own way. Later that week, Lily brings the picture home and asks if she can give it away. To who Sarah asks. Lily thinks for a moment, to the place that teaches people to help. Sarah understands. They deliver it together to a small training office where social workers gather. The administrator thanks Lily gently and promises it will be kept safe. Lily does not linger. She has done what she came to do. Keanu remains part of their lives in a way that never feels heavy. He sends a message on Lily's birthday. A book arrives a few days later. This one is about courage that grows slowly, like plants pushing through snow. Lily reads it twice before placing it carefully on her shelf. Sometimes he visits when he is in town, always with notice, always with boundaries. He sits at the kitchen table and listens more than he speaks. He asks Lily what she is learning. He asks Sarah how she is holding up. When Lily shows him her new drawing, he does not comment on himself. He comments on the colors, on the steadiness of the lines. "You're getting very precise," he says. Lily smiles. On the first snowfall of the next winter, Lily stands by the window again. She watches flakes drift down, slow and gentle. Sarah joins her, resting a hand on her daughter's shoulder. "Does it scare you?" Sarah asks. Lily shakes her head. "Not like before." She pauses, then adds, "Because now I know people can stop." Sarah nods, blinking back tears. Across the city, people walk through cold nights and busy stations. Most are thinking about their own lives. Some are distracted. But now and then, someone slows. Someone looks twice. Someone notices what feels wrong. That is the real legacy. Not a rescue, not a name, but a pause and a choice, and a child who grows up knowing that even in the coldest moments, being seen can change everything. The community safety event is held in a high school auditorium on a Saturday afternoon. Nothing about it feels glamorous. Folding chairs, a simple banner hung a little crooked near the stage. Tables along the walls stacked with pamphlets about recognizing warning signs, how to report concerns, how to intervene safely. Parents arrive with children in tow, teachers, transit workers, social workers, ordinary people who came because something in the story stayed with them. Sarah sits near the front with Lily beside her. Lily's feet do not reach the floor. She swings them gently, nervous but curious. She knows why they are here. She has known for days. Still, the crowd feels big. The room hums with quiet conversation and anticipation. When Keanu enters, there is no announcement, no music, no introduction. He walks in through a side aisle and takes a seat near the front, nodding to people who recognize him but do not stand or point. The energy in the room shifts anyway. Not excitement. Awareness. This is not a performance. After several speakers address the crowd, a coordinator steps to the microphone again. She thanks the volunteers. Mentions the local programs that grew out of one night at a train station. Then she pauses. There is one person here, she says, carefully, who reminds us why this matters. She gestures gently toward Keanu. He hesitates, then stands. The applause that rises is brief and restrained, as if everyone understands instinctively that loudness would be wrong. Keanu walks to the microphone and does not adjust it. He does not clear his throat dramatically. He rests his hands lightly on the podium and looks out at the faces in front of him. He does not smile. I don't really have a speech, he says. The room stills completely. He looks down for a moment, collecting his thoughts, then back up. I've been called a hero for what happened, he continues. I want to be very clear about something. He pauses again. I didn't save her. A murmur ripples through the audience, quickly fading. I just stopped, he says. That's it. He lets the words settle. I noticed something that didn't feel right, he goes on. And instead of assuming someone else would handle it, I stayed. Anyone here could have done the same thing. He looks toward the back of the room, then slowly toward the front where Lily sits. This story isn't about one moment, he says. It's about what happens when we decide not to look away. He steps back from the microphone. No closing line, no emphasis, no invitation for applause. For a second, no one moves. Then the room responds, not with cheers, but with understanding. A few people nod. Some wipe their eyes quietly. The applause that comes is soft, but sustained, the sound of people agreeing rather than celebrating. Keanu steps down from the stage and turns back toward his seat. Before he reaches it, he feels something small and solid press into him. Lily. She has stood up without asking, walked the short distance between her row and the aisle, wrapped her arms around him tightly, her face buried against his jacket. The room holds its breath. Keanu freezes for half a second, then slowly lowers himself to her level. He wraps his arms around her carefully, not possessive, not performative, just present. Lily does not let go right away. For the first time, she does not hide her face. And the people watching understand that this moment is not for them. It is simply the visible proof of something quieter, that stopping matters, and sometimes it stays with you forever. After a moment, Lily pulls back just enough to look at him. Her hands remain on his jacket, fingers curled, grounding herself. She does not smile for the crowd. She smiles for him. You said I was warm, she says, clear and steady into the quiet room. Keanu nods. You were, he replies. You are. Sarah stands a few steps away, hands clasped, tears tracing slow lines down her cheeks. This is the first time Lily has chosen to be seen like this. Not protected behind her mother's shoulder, not hidden, standing. A coordinator moves to intervene, worried about protocol, but stops when Sarah gently shakes her head. This is Lily's moment. Keanu releases the hug first, carefully giving Lily the choice to stay close or step back. She steps back, still touching his sleeve, then turns toward the audience. The room remains silent. I'm not scared anymore, Lily says, because people can stop. The words are simple. They land everywhere. Keanu returns to his seat. Lily goes back to her mother. Sarah kneels and holds her, whispering thank you into her hair. Around them, people exhale as if a long-held breath has finally found release. The event continues, but something has shifted. Conversations soften. Strangers speak to one another with a little more patience. A transit worker mentions a time he almost intervened and wishes he had. A teacher resolves to add a unit on noticing. Small promises form quietly. Afterward in the lobby, Keanu keeps to the side. He thanks volunteers, he listens, he deflects praise again, redirecting attention to resources and training schedules posted on the wall. Before leaving, Lily approaches him once more, holding a folded piece of paper. She offers it without ceremony. "It's for you," she says. Keanu opens it later outside, away from the crowd. It is a drawing, a bench, a kneeling figure, and beneath it, in careful letters, a sentence. "Stopping helps." He folds it and slips it into his pocket. As the doors close behind him, the afternoon light spills across the steps. People disperse in small groups talking softly. Somewhere nearby, a train arrives and departs. Life continues. But it continues with more eyes open, and more pauses, and more people willing to stop. They leave with pamphlets tucked under arms and resolve in their steps. No one claims certainty, they claim attention. The kind that looks twice, asks once, and stays. It is not heroic, it is human, and it is enough to keep someone warm when the night returns, for everyone who notices next time, together quietly. The bench is still there, same place, same wooden slats, same metal legs bolted into concrete. A year has passed and the station looks almost ordinary now. Trains arrive on time. Commuters move with purpose. Coffee cups steam in gloved hands. No one notices the bench unless they are waiting. Snow falls again, but not like before. This time it melts as it touches the ground. Thin patches of water glisten beneath the lights. The cold no longer bites. It lingers, but it does not dominate. Winter has softened its grip. The bench is empty. No small shape curled against itself. No bare feet tucked beneath thin fabric. No cardboard sign darkened by snow and intention. Just an ordinary bench in an ordinary place doing nothing at all. And yet it holds everything. It holds the memory of how easily a child can disappear into the background of adult lives, how danger does not always announce itself, how it waits quietly wrapped in stillness, trusting that most people will keep walking. Most children in danger do not scream, they do not run, they do not beg, they stay silent, they stay small. They learn early that drawing attention can make things worse. So they sit, they wait, they endure, they hope without knowing how to ask. That is what made the difference that night. Not strength, not fame, not authority, just attention. Someone noticed the stillness. Someone felt that something was wrong and did not explain it away. Someone chose to stop instead of assuming someone else would. That choice did not come with certainty. It came with risk, with questions, with the possibility of misunderstanding, and it was still the right one. The bench remains as a quiet reminder that the moments that change lives rarely look dramatic. They look inconvenient, uncomfortable, easy to ignore. They ask something simple and difficult at the same time. Will you pause? Will you look again? Will you trust the feeling that tells you this matters? Most stories are not saved by grand gestures. They are saved by seconds, by the space between one step and the next, by the decision to stop walking. Somewhere right now, a child is sitting quietly hoping to be seen, not asking, not crying, just waiting. The question is not whether heroes exist. The question is simpler. If you saw her, would you stop? And if this story stayed with you, if it made you pause even for a moment, then stay with us. Tell us in the comments what story Keanu should tell next. Because sometimes the next story begins when someone decides to pay attention. Long after the crowd leaves the station, settles into its nightly rhythm again. Lights hum. Tracks vibrate. The bench waits without expectation. It does not remember, but people do. Memory travels in quieter ways, carried by those who heard this story and felt something shift inside them. Maybe it shows up the next time you hesitate, the next time something feels off and your mind offers excuses. Someone else will handle it. I might be wrong. It is none of my business. Those thoughts arrive quickly and sound reasonable. They always do. What matters is what comes next. Do you keep walking relieved to be free of responsibility? Or do you slow down even briefly and allow yourself to notice? Stopping does not require answers. It requires presence. A question asked, a distance respected, a call made. Often stopping looks like waiting nearby and refusing to leave until help arrives. Often it looks like caring without control. This is how communities protect children. Not with constant fear, but with shared attention. Not with suspicion, but with responsibility that does not get passed along. Lily's life did not change because one man was extraordinary. It changed because one moment was handled differently than all the others, because one adult chose action over assumption. That option belongs to everyone. It belongs to the person coming off a late shift, to the parent juggling groceries, to the commuter staring at a phone, to anyone who has ever felt a quiet warning and talked themselves out of listening. If this story stirred something uncomfortable, hold on to it. Discomfort is often the beginning of awareness. Awareness is what keeps people safe. And if you believe stories like this matter, help them reach others. Share this video with someone who might need the reminder. Leave a comment about what moment stayed with you. Your words may be what causes someone else to pause when it counts. Most of all, remember this. Attention is not dramatic. It does not announce itself. It happens in ordinary places on ordinary nights when no one is watching. The bench will be empty again tomorrow, and the next day, and the next. What fills the space is not fate. It is choice. If you ever find yourself standing where Keanu stood, with doubt pulling you forward and instinct pulling you back, choose to stop. Choose to notice. Choose to stay. And tell us what story Keanu should tell next. Because the stories we tell shape the choices we make, and the choices we make decide who goes home safe. Let this ending be an invitation, not a conclusion. Carry it into buses, platforms, sidewalks, and waiting rooms. Carry it into the moments when your schedule feels more urgent than a stranger. The world does not need more noise. It needs more witnesses. People willing to notice, quietly act carefully, and stay long enough to make a difference. If this story reminded you of that responsibility, pass it on. And if you are searching for what comes next, stay here. More stories are coming, each one rooted in the same simple truth. Attention saves lives. Stopping matters. And the smallest pause chosen at the right time can change a future forever. Your voice here helps shape those stories, and your comments guide where they go. Stay engaged, share thoughtfully, and keep paying attention, because attention is how ordinary people become, the reason someone survives an ordinary night. That choice can begin with you right now, in the next quiet moment you face.